Welcome everyone. In our previous episode, we explored the powerful habit of being proactive and taking control of our responses to life's challenges. We learned that between stimulus and response, there is a space where we have the freedom to choose. Today, we move forward to habit 2, begin with the end in mind, which teaches us how to use that freedom wisely by creating a clear vision for our lives. Before we dive into this transformative habit, let me tell you about Stephen Covey and why he wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Covey was not just a business consultant or motivational speaker. He was a deeply thoughtful man who spent years studying success literature and human effectiveness. He earned his MBA from Harvard and his doctorate from Brigham Young University, where he later became a professor of organizational behavior. Covey noticed something troubling in the 1980s. He saw people climbing the ladder of success only to discover their ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Executives were achieving financial success but losing their families. Professionals were winning at work but failing at life. People were busy, productive, and miserable. They were efficient, but not effective. They knew how to do things right, but they weren't doing the right things. This observation led Covey to ask a fundamental question: what makes someone truly effective? Not just productive or successful, but genuinely effective in all areas of life. He studied 200 years of success literature, searching for patterns and principles. What he discovered changed everything. The most effective people throughout history didn't just react to circumstances. They didn't just work harder or faster. They started with a clear vision of what they wanted to achieve and then worked backward to make it happen. The problem Covey's book solves is profound and universal. Most people live their lives by default rather than by design. They wake up each day and respond to whatever comes at them. They make decisions based on immediate pressures, other people's expectations, or short-term desires. Years pass, and they look back with regret, realizing they spent their precious time on things that didn't really matter. They were so busy climbing that they never stopped to ask if they were climbing the right mountain. As we discussed in Part 2, being proactive means taking responsibility for our choices. But begin with the end in mind takes this further. It asks, what are you choosing? Where are you going? What is the destination you're working toward? Without clear answers to these questions, even our most proactive efforts can lead us in the wrong direction. We might be steering the ship with great skill, but if we don't know where we're sailing, we'll never arrive anywhere meaningful. Now, let me share with you the first key idea from this powerful habit. Covey introduces this concept with a startling mental exercise. He asks you to imagine your own funeral. I know this sounds dark, but stay with me because this exercise changes lives. Picture yourself arriving at a funeral home. You see flowers, you hear soft music, you notice friends and family gathered. As you walk closer, you realize with shock that this is your funeral. You have somehow been given the gift of attending your own memorial service. 4 people are going to speak about you. The first is a family member, perhaps your spouse or child. The second is a close friend who knew you well. The third is a colleague from work. The fourth is someone from your community or church. Now, here's the critical question: what would you want each of these people to say about you? What character would you like them to describe? What contributions would you like them to remember? What difference would you like to have made in their lives? Covey believes this exercise is transformative because it forces us to define success on our own terms before life defines it for us. When we imagine our funeral, we don't think about how many hours we worked or how much money we made. We think about relationships, character, and contribution. We think about love, integrity, and meaning. The funeral exercise reveals what truly matters to us, beneath all the noise and busyness of daily life. Here's a specific example from the book. Covey tells the story of a corporate executive who did this exercise during one of his seminars. The man imagined his son speaking at his funeral. In his mind, he heard his son say, "My father was always there for me. He came to my games, helped with my homework, and listened when I needed to talk. He showed me what it means to be a good man." When the executive opened his eyes, he was crying. Because the truth was, he had been working 70-hour weeks. He had missed most of his son's games. He barely knew what grade his son was in. This executive realized he was living one life but wanted to be remembered for another. He was climbing the ladder of corporate success while his ladder at home was falling over. The funeral exercise gave him clarity. It showed him the gap between his current path and his desired destination. Within a month, he had restructured his work schedule. He started leaving the office at 5 o'clock 3 days a week. He began coaching his son's soccer team. He didn't quit his job or abandon his career. He simply realigned his daily choices with his ultimate values. Why does Covey believe this exercise is so powerful? Because most people never clearly define what success means to them. They adopt society's definition of success: money, status, power, possessions. Or they adopt their parents' definition, or their friends' definition. They spend their entire lives pursuing goals that were never really theirs. Then, at the end, they feel empty because they achieved something that didn't align with their deepest values. Beginning with the end in mind means deciding for yourself what a successful life looks like, and then living each day in a way that moves you toward that vision. The second key idea Covey presents is the concept of living by a personal mission statement. Remember when we talked about being proactive in part 2? We learned that proactive people are driven by values rather than feelings or circumstances. But how do you identify your values? How do you keep them front and center when life gets busy and chaotic? Covey's answer is to write a personal mission statement, a document that clearly articulates your values, your vision, and your purpose. A personal mission statement is like a constitution for your life. Just as the United States Constitution guides every law and decision in that country, your personal mission statement guides every choice and action in your life. It becomes your standard for measuring everything else. When opportunities arise, you can ask, does this align with my mission? When conflicts occur, you can ask, which choice better reflects my values? When you're tired and tempted to compromise, you can return to your mission statement and remember why you're making the sacrifices you're making. Covey shares the example of a woman named Sandra who created her mission statement after years of feeling pulled in too many directions. She was a mother, a wife, a professional, a daughter caring for aging parents, and a volunteer at her church. She felt like she was failing at everything because she was trying to do everything. When she sat down to write her mission statement, she had to confront some hard truths. What mattered most to her? If she couldn't do it all, what would she choose? After weeks of reflection, Sandra wrote a mission statement that began, "My mission is to nurture and teach my children, creating a home filled with love, learning, and laughter. I will be a supportive partner to my husband, building a marriage based on respect and friendship. I will use my professional skills to contribute to my community while maintaining balance. I will care for my aging parents with patience and honor. Notice what's in this statement and what's not. Sandra included family, work, and community, but she defined them in her own terms. She didn't promise to be a perfect mother or a corporate executive. She promised to nurture, to support, to contribute, to maintain balance. With this mission statement, Sandra's decisions became clearer. When she was asked to chair a major committee at work, she checked her mission statement. The role would require 60-hour weeks for 6 months. It would advance her career significantly. But it would also mean missing dinners with her children and having no energy left for her husband. The old Sandra would have said yes out of guilt or ambition. The new Sandra said no because the opportunity, though good, didn't align with her mission. She felt peace instead of guilt because she knew she was being true to her deepest values. Why does Covey believe so strongly in personal mission statements? Because he understands that we all have missions whether we write them down or not. The question is whether our mission is conscious or unconscious, chosen or default. Without a written mission statement, our mission is whatever we happen to be doing at the moment. We drift. We react. We let other people's agendas become our agenda. But when we take the time to write down our mission, we move from being reactive to being proactive. We move from living by accident to living by design. Covey also explains that creating a mission statement requires us to use our unique human endowment of imagination. Remember, being proactive means recognizing our freedom to choose. But we can only choose wisely if we can imagine different futures. Animals can't do this. A dog lives in the present moment. But humans can close their eyes and envision a future that doesn't yet exist. We can imagine who we want to become and then take steps to become that person. This is the essence of beginning with the end in mind, using our imagination to create a mental picture of our desired future, and then using our willpower to make that future real. The third key idea Covey presents is the principle of mental creation before physical creation. This principle states that everything is created twice, first in the mind, then in reality. Before a building exists, an architect creates it in blueprints. Before a meal is cooked, someone plans the menu. Before a business succeeds, an entrepreneur envisions the product or service. The mental creation always precedes the physical creation. This is true whether we're conscious of it or not. Here's the crucial insight: if you don't make a conscious effort to create your own mental blueprint, you'll accept someone else's blueprint by default. If you don't decide what kind of person you want to be, society will decide for you. If you don't design your own life, you'll live according to other people's designs. Covey illustrates this with the example of a carpenter. Imagine hiring a carpenter to build your house, but you don't give him any blueprints. You just say, "Build me a house." What would you get? You'd get whatever the carpenter felt like building that day. It might be beautiful or ugly, functional or impractical. It would certainly not be what you wanted because you never specified what you wanted. Yet this is exactly how most people approach their lives. They never create a clear blueprint for who they want to be or what they want to achieve. Then they're surprised when their life doesn't turn out the way they hoped. They blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. But the truth is, they never took the time to do the mental creation. They never designed their life with intention. They just started building without a plan. Covey tells the story of a man named Robert who came to one of his workshops feeling deeply frustrated. Robert was 50 years old and had been practicing law for 25 years. He made good money, had a nice house, and from the outside looked successful. But he was miserable. He hated going to work. He felt trapped. When Covey asked him why he became a lawyer, Robert said, "My father was a lawyer. Everyone expected me to follow in his footsteps. I never really thought about whether I wanted to do it. I just did it." Robert had lived 50 years without doing the mental creation. He had accepted someone else's blueprint for his life. Now, at 50, he was living in a house he never designed. Covey asked him to do the funeral exercise and write a mission statement. When Robert imagined his funeral, he realized something shocking. He didn't want to be remembered as a lawyer at all. What he really valued was teaching and mentoring young people. He loved the moments when he could explain complex ideas and watch someone's face light up with understanding. This realization led Robert to make a radical change. He didn't quit law immediately, but he started volunteering as a teacher at a community college, teaching business law one evening a week. He discovered he loved it. Over the next 2 years, he gradually transitioned from full-time law practice to full-time teaching. He took a significant pay cut, but he found something more valuable: alignment between his daily life and his deepest values. He had finally done the mental creation, designed his own blueprint, and started building the life he actually wanted. Why does Covey emphasize this principle of mental creation before physical creation? Because he understands that our thoughts shape our reality. If we think clearly about what we want, we can create it. But if we don't think clearly, if we never do the mental work of envisioning our desired future, we'll create something by accident, and we probably won't like what we get. Beginning with the end in mind means taking control of the mental creation process. It means being the architect of your own life rather than just the construction worker building whatever blueprint happens to be in front of you. The fourth key idea is about rescripting. Covey acknowledges that we all inherit scripts from our families, our cultures, and our experiences. These scripts are the unconscious beliefs and patterns that shape our behavior. Some scripts are empowering: you can do anything you set your mind to. Some scripts are limiting: people like us don't succeed. Some scripts are about relationships: marriage requires sacrifice. Some are about work: you have to work hard to get ahead. We didn't write most of these scripts. We absorbed them from the people around us. The problem is that many of our inherited scripts don't align with our values or serve our goals. They're based on someone else's experiences, fears, or limitations. Beginning with the end in mind includes examining these scripts and deciding which ones to keep and which ones to rewrite. Covey calls this process rescripting. It means taking conscious control of the narratives that guide your life. Here's a powerful example from the book. Covey worked with a man named Tom who had a script about money that said, "Rich people are greedy and selfish. Good people are poor and generous." Tom had inherited this script from his father, who had been cheated by a wealthy business partner and developed a deep distrust of wealth. This script was sabotaging Tom's career. Every time he got close to a promotion or a raise, he would unconsciously sabotage himself. He would miss important meetings, submit sloppy work, or pick fights with his boss. He was keeping himself poor to remain good according to his inherited script. When Tom did the mental creation exercise and wrote his mission statement, he realized that one of his deepest values was providing security for his family and contributing to charitable causes. But his money script was preventing him from doing either. He couldn't provide security if he kept sabotaging his income. He couldn't contribute generously if he had no resources. Tom needed to rescript. He needed to write a new story about money that aligned with his values. Tom's new script became, "Money is a tool that allows me to provide for my family and help others. Wealth creates opportunities for generosity. I can be both successful and good." This wasn't just positive thinking. It was a conscious decision to reject an inherited script that didn't serve him and replace it with a script that aligned with his mission. With this new script, Tom stopped sabotaging himself. He accepted the promotion. He grew his income. And he started a college fund for his children and began supporting 3 charities regularly. He became living proof of his new script, successful and good. Why does Covey believe rescripting is essential? Because he knows that we can't begin with the end in mind if we're unconsciously following scripts that lead us somewhere else. It's like trying to drive to New York while following a map to Los Angeles. No matter how hard you try, you'll never reach your destination if you're following the wrong map. Rescripting means examining your maps, your scripts, your unconscious beliefs, and making sure they align with your conscious goals and values. Covey also emphasizes that rescripting requires us to use our unique human endowment of self-awareness. Remember from Part 2, self-awareness is the ability to stand apart from yourself and examine your own thoughts and behaviors. Animals can't do this. But humans can observe themselves, question their assumptions, and choose to change. This is the power that makes rescripting possible. We can look at a script we've been following for decades and say, "This doesn't serve me anymore. I'm going to write a new script." Now, let's talk about practical application. How do you actually begin with the end in mind in your daily life? Covey provides clear, actionable steps. The first step is to do the funeral exercise seriously. Don't rush through it. Find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes and really imagine your funeral in detail. Who is there? What is the atmosphere? What do you hope each person will say about you? Write down what you discover. This exercise reveals your deepest values with startling clarity. The second step is to write your personal mission statement. This isn't something you do in an afternoon. Covey suggests it might take weeks or even months to write a mission statement that truly captures your values and vision. Start by asking yourself key questions. What do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I want to contribute? What character qualities do I want to develop? What relationships matter most to me? What legacy do I want to leave? As you write, focus on principles and values, not positions or possessions. Don't write, "I want to be CEO of a Fortune 500 company." That's a position, and it might not be in your control. Instead, write something like, "I want to develop leadership skills and use them to create value for others." That's a principle you can live by regardless of your job title. Don't write, "I want a big house and a luxury car." That's about possessions. Instead, write, "I want to provide security and comfort for my family while living within my means." That's a value that can guide your financial decisions. Covey shares his own mission statement in the book as an example. Part of it reads, "I want to be a loving husband and father, a successful teacher and writer, and a contributor to society. I want to live with integrity, to be honest in all my dealings, to be humble enough to learn from others, and to be courageous enough to stand for my principles." Notice how specific yet flexible this is. It gives clear direction without being rigid. It focuses on character and contribution, not achievements and acquisitions. The third step is to review your mission statement regularly. Covey recommends reviewing it at least weekly, perhaps as part of your weekly planning session. This regular review keeps your mission front and center. It prevents you from drifting back into reactive mode, just responding to whatever life throws at you. When you review your mission statement, ask yourself, did my actions this week align with my mission? Where did I succeed? Where did I fall short? What will I do differently next week? The fourth step is to use your mission statement as a filter for decisions. When opportunities arise, ask, does this align with my mission? When conflicts occur, ask, which choice better reflects my values? When you're tempted to compromise your principles for short-term gain, return to your mission statement and remember what you're really working toward. Your mission statement becomes your personal constitution, the supreme law of your life that guides all other decisions. Covey also suggests creating mission statements for different roles in your life. You might have a mission statement for yourself as a parent, another for yourself as a professional, another for yourself as a spouse. These role-specific missions should all align with your overall personal mission, but they help you think more specifically about what you want to achieve in each area of life. For example, your mission as a parent might be, to create a home where my children feel safe, loved, and encouraged to become their best selves. To teach by example more than by words. To listen more than I lecture. Let me share one more powerful example from Covey's work. He tells the story of a woman named Janet who was struggling in her marriage. She and her husband fought constantly. She felt unappreciated and unloved. When she did the funeral exercise, she imagined her husband speaking at her funeral. What did she want him to say? She wanted him to say she was his best friend, his partner, his source of joy and comfort. But the reality was far from this vision. Janet realized she had been focusing on what she wanted from her husband rather than who she wanted to be as a wife. She had been reactive, responding to his behavior with criticism and complaints. She decided to begin with the end in mind. She wrote a mission statement for her role as a wife: I want to be a source of support and encouragement to my husband. I want to appreciate his efforts and forgive his failures. I want to be his partner and his friend. With this mission statement, Janet's behavior changed. Instead of criticizing her husband for coming home late, she welcomed him warmly and asked about his day. Instead of complaining about what he didn't do, she expressed appreciation for what he did do. She didn't become a doormat. She still addressed issues, but she did it from a place of partnership rather than antagonism. And something remarkable happened. Her husband began to change too. He started coming home earlier. He started helping more around the house. He became more affectionate. Janet's story illustrates a crucial point: beginning with the end in mind doesn't mean controlling outcomes. Janet couldn't control her husband's behavior. But she could control her own. By clarifying who she wanted to be and then acting in alignment with that vision, she created the conditions for her marriage to improve. She began with the end in mind, and the end she envisioned started to become reality. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds good, but what if my circumstances make it impossible to live my mission? What if I'm stuck in a job I hate but can't afford to quit? What if I have responsibilities that prevent me from pursuing my dreams? Covey addresses these concerns directly. He says that beginning with the end in mind doesn't mean you can change everything overnight. It means you start moving in the right direction, even if you can only take small steps. Remember Robert, the lawyer who wanted to teach? He didn't quit his job immediately. He started with one evening class per week. That was what his circumstances allowed. But that one class was aligned with his mission, and it gave him hope and energy. Over time, as he proved himself as a teacher and saved money, he was able to make bigger changes. The key is to start where you are, with what you have, and move toward your vision one step at a time. Covey also emphasizes that beginning with the end in mind gives you patience for the journey. When you have a clear destination, you can endure temporary discomfort because you know it's leading somewhere meaningful. It's like climbing a mountain. The climb is hard, but if you can see the summit, if you know why you're climbing, you can keep putting one foot in front of the other. Without that vision of the summit, every step feels pointless, and you're likely to give up. Building on what we learned in Part 2 about being proactive, beginning with the end in mind takes proactivity to the next level. Being proactive means taking responsibility for your choices. Beginning with the end in mind means making sure those choices are leading you somewhere worth going. It's the difference between steering the ship and steering the ship toward a specific port. Both require skill, but only the second gets you where you want to go. Let me give you a practical example of how these first two habits work together. Imagine you're in a meeting at work, and your boss criticizes your project in front of everyone. Habit 1, being proactive, tells you that you have a choice in how to respond. You can choose not to react defensively or angrily. You can pause and choose your response based on your values rather than your feelings. That's being proactive. But habit 2, beginning with the end in mind, tells you what response to choose. You think about your mission statement. Maybe part of your mission is to be known for professionalism and grace under pressure. Maybe part of your mission is to learn and grow continuously. With that end in mind, you choose to respond by thanking your boss for the feedback, asking clarifying questions to understand the concerns better, and committing to improve. This response aligns with your mission. It moves you toward the person you want to become. Without habit 2, you might be proactive but directionless. You might choose not to get angry, but then you don't know what to do instead. You might choose to respond calmly, but without a clear sense of who you're trying to be, your response lacks purpose and power. Habit 2 gives your proactivity direction. It turns your freedom to choose into a tool for creating the life and character you desire. Covey also talks about the importance of beginning with the end in mind in our relationships. Too often, we react to people based on their behavior toward us. They're rude, so we're rude back. They're distant, so we become distant. They criticize, so we criticize. This is reactive relationship management. Proactive relationship management, guided by beginning with the end in mind, looks different. You start by asking, what kind of relationship do I want with this person? What do I want this relationship to look like in 5 years, 10 years, at the end of my life? Then you behave in ways that move you toward that vision, regardless of how the other person is currently behaving. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or disrespecting yourself. It means being true to your values and vision even when it's difficult. For example, maybe you have a difficult relationship with your teenage daughter. She's rebellious, disrespectful, and distant. You could react to her behavior with anger and control, which is what you feel like doing. Or you could begin with the end in mind. Imagine your relationship with her when she's 30. What do you want it to be? Probably close, loving, and respectful. With that end in mind, how should you respond to her rebellion now? Probably with firm boundaries but also with patience, understanding, and unconditional love. You discipline her behavior, but you don't reject her as a person. You stay connected even when it's hard because you're focused on the long-term relationship, not just the immediate conflict. This long-term perspective changes everything. It gives you patience when you want to explode. It gives you wisdom when you want to react. It helps you see that this difficult moment is just one moment in a relationship that spans decades. Beginning with the end in mind means asking, what will matter in 20 years? And then acting based on that answer rather than based on how you feel right now. Let's talk about the connection between beginning with the end in mind and leadership. Covey says that all things are created twice, first mentally, then physically. This is especially true in leadership. A leader's primary job is to create a vision, a mental picture of a desired future, and then inspire others to make that vision real. Without the mental creation, without the vision, there's nothing to lead toward. You might manage people, but you're not leading them anywhere. Covey contrasts leadership and management. Management is about doing things right. Leadership is about doing the right things. Management is about efficiency. Leadership is about effectiveness. Management is about climbing the ladder. Leadership is about making sure the ladder is leaning against the right wall. You need both, but leadership must come first. You must begin with the end in mind, defining the right destination, before you can manage the journey effectively. Here's a business example from the book. Covey worked with a company that was struggling. They were working harder than ever, but their market share was declining. When Covey met with the leadership team, he asked them, "What is your vision for this company? What is the end you have in mind?" They looked at each other blankly. They had no shared vision. They were managing day-to-day operations, but no one was leading. No one had created a clear mental picture of where the company should be going. Covey facilitated a process where the leadership team created a mission statement for the company. They asked, "Why do we exist? What value do we provide to customers? What kind of company do we want to be?" After weeks of discussion, they created a mission statement that focused on innovation, customer service, and employee development. This mission statement became their end, the vision they were working toward. With this clarity, everything changed. They stopped competing on price alone and started competing on innovation. They invested in customer service training. They created development programs for employees. Within 2 years, their market share had recovered and their employee satisfaction had skyrocketed. The difference wasn't that they worked harder. They had already been working hard. The difference was that they began with the end in mind. They defined their destination, and then all their hard work moved them toward that destination instead of in random directions. Now, let me address a common concern. Some people worry that beginning with the end in mind makes life too rigid. They say, "What if I write a mission statement and then my circumstances change? What if I discover new passions? Won't I be locked into an outdated vision?" Covey's answer is that your mission statement should be based on timeless principles, not temporary circumstances. If your mission is to be a loving parent, that doesn't change even if you change careers or move to a new city. If your mission is to live with integrity, that principle guides you in any situation. Also, your mission statement is a living document. You should review it regularly and revise it as you grow and learn. Covey himself revised his mission statement many times over the years. The point isn't to create a perfect, unchanging document. The point is to have a conscious, written vision that guides your choices. Even an imperfect mission statement is infinitely better than no mission statement at all, because it forces you to think about what matters and make deliberate choices instead of just drifting. Let me share some practical exercises you can do today to start applying this habit. First, spend 30 minutes doing the funeral exercise. Really imagine it in detail. Write down what you hope each speaker will say about you. This exercise is uncomfortable, but it's incredibly clarifying. It cuts through all the noise and reveals what truly matters to you. Second, start drafting your personal mission statement. Don't try to perfect it in one sitting. Just start writing. Ask yourself, what are my deepest values? What kind of person do I want to be? What do I want to contribute to the world? What relationships matter most to me? Write whatever comes to mind. You can refine it later. The important thing is to start the mental creation process. Third, identify one inherited script that's holding you back. Maybe it's a belief about money, relationships, success, or your own abilities. Ask yourself, where did this script come from? Does it serve me? Does it align with my values? If not, write a new script. Decide consciously what you want to believe instead. Fourth, look at your calendar for this week. Do your scheduled activities align with your values and vision? If you discover that 80% of your time is spent on things that don't align with what you said matters most in the funeral exercise, that's valuable information. It means there's a gap between your current path and your desired destination. You can't change everything immediately, but you can start making small adjustments. Covey emphasizes that beginning with the end in mind is not a one-time exercise. It's a habit, something you practice daily. Every morning, you can ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? How can my actions today align with my mission? Every evening, you can review, did I live according to my values today? Where did I succeed? Where did I fall short? This daily practice keeps your end in mind and prevents you from drifting back into reactive mode. Let me share one final story that brings this all together. Covey tells about a man named David who attended one of his workshops feeling successful but unfulfilled. David was a partner at a prestigious law firm. He made excellent money. He had achieved everything he set out to achieve. But he felt empty. When Covey asked him to do the funeral exercise, David broke down in tears. David imagined his son speaking at his funeral, and his son said, "My father was a stranger to me. He was always working. I don't really know who he was." David imagined his wife saying, "He was a good provider, but I wished he had been more present." These imagined eulogies shattered David because he realized he was on track to receive exactly those eulogies in reality. He had been so focused on climbing the ladder of success that he never stopped to ask if it was leaning against the right wall. David wrote a mission statement that completely reoriented his life. His mission included being present for his family, using his legal skills to help those who couldn't afford representation, and mentoring young lawyers. With this mission in mind, he made radical changes. He reduced his hours at the firm. He started doing pro bono work 1 day a week. He began having breakfast with his son every morning before school. He instituted a weekly date night with his wife. 3 years later, David attended another workshop. Covey asked him how things were going. David said his income had dropped by 30%, but his life satisfaction had increased by 300%. He had a close relationship with his son. His marriage was thriving. He felt like his work mattered because he was helping people who really needed it. He had begun with the end in mind, and that vision had transformed his entire life. This is the power of habit 2. It gives you the clarity to make hard choices. It gives you the courage to say no to good opportunities that don't align with your mission so you can say yes to great opportunities that do. It gives you the peace of knowing that your daily actions are moving you toward a destination you've chosen, not one that was chosen for you. As we close this episode, I want you to understand that beginning with the end in mind is not about perfection. It's not about having your entire life planned out. It's about having a direction, a vision, a sense of purpose that guides your choices. It's about being the architect of your own life rather than just the construction worker building whatever blueprint happens to be in front of you. Remember, everything is created twice, first in the mind, then in reality. If you don't take control of the mental creation, someone else will do it for you. Your life will be designed by your circumstances, your culture, other people's expectations, and unconscious scripts you inherited. But if you take the time to do the mental creation yourself, if you begin with the end in mind, you can create a life that reflects your deepest values and highest aspirations. In our next episode, we'll explore habit 3, put first things first. We've learned to be proactive and take responsibility for our choices. We've learned to begin with the end in mind and create a vision for our lives. Now we'll learn how to make that vision real through effective time management and prioritization. We'll discover how to focus on what matters most and stop being tyrannized by the urgent but unimportant. But for now, take action on what you've learned today. Do the funeral exercise. Start writing your mission statement. Examine your scripts. Ask yourself, am I climbing the right wall? Am I living the life I want to be remembered for? These questions might be uncomfortable, but they're essential. Because the worst thing in the world is to climb the ladder of success only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Begin with the end in mind, and you'll never face that tragedy. You'll know your ladder is positioned exactly where it should be, leading you toward a life of meaning, contribution, and genuine effectiveness.